Good morning. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Welcome to the session 6 of the 23rd Annual Northwest Interlibrary Loan and Resource Sharing Conference. Today's date is September 22nd, 2023. This session is titled Ebook Lenders, Keeping Track Together, and will be presented by Dev Singer. My name is Wanda Barrett, and I'm the convener for this section. I work at the Washington State Law Library. This session is being recorded with permission from the presenter. Because they retain copyright to the information they're presenting, they may choose to request its removal from public viewing in the future by written request to NWILL. However, at this time, it's planned that recordings will be made available once captions have been added. Attendees will be notified when recordings are available. To turn on live captioning, click the CC link at the bottom of the screen and select Show Subtitles. If you have questions during the session, please use the Whova Q&A, since we may not see questions that are posted in chat. You can also vote for the questions that are posted, and we will answer as many of these as we can at the end of the session. When the presentation ends, please complete the post-session survey in Whova, located on the conference homepage and in the session chat. NWILL and the presenters appreciate and use your feedback. On that note, I'll turn this session over to our presenter.
Sorry about that. Wanda, can you turn off my video because I can't seem to figure out how to do that?
Maybe Miriam, do you know how to turn off someone else's video?
Thank you. For folks who are not aware, we are keeping our videos off during presentations because for those on the mobile app, a video on will cover a third of the slides, and that is just not helpful. So, welcome to Ebook Lenders, Keeping Track Together. My name is Dev Singer, and I'll be your presenter for this session. I would like to preface my talk with the fact that I will not be talking about controlled digital lending. For that, you want to stay for the next session. Who am I? Currently, I'm the resource sharing coordinator for borrowing at Brandeis University on the ancestral land of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket people. Before joining Brandeis earlier this year, I spent 5 years at LaSalle University, which is a much smaller institution. I've also worked at 6 other academic libraries of varying sizes. I'm currently a member of the Boston Library Consortium's Ebook Working Group and a member of the Rusa Star's Legislation and Licensing Committee. So we have a problem in ILL land. We have these ebooks. We've had these ebooks for a while now, and we've been talking about them for years. Joanne Piercy and Krista Hingham gave a presentation on ebooks and ILL at this same conference in 2012. That's 11 years ago. But now we have more of them. I think we may have hit a tipping point. If you look at the numbers in the United States, both academic libraries and public libraries are now providing access to more ebooks than print books. While I don't have the exact numbers, the literature shows that this trend is international. In Australia, for instance, Curtin University's collection was 72% electronic and 28% physical by 2021. That's not to mention the universities such as Vermont State University and the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, who have embraced a mostly digital collection. I've noticed that, particularly for titles published since 2020, there are often more holdings for the ebook version than the print version. Sometimes there are fewer than 10 libraries holding the print, which is problematic when I have a patron who wants the book. I'm worried that this phenomenon might not only carry into future publications, but bleed into the backlist as folks read print books that they have electronic access to. If whole ebook ILL doesn't become a normalized thing, we could have a much bigger problem on our hands. So why are libraries purchasing so many ebooks these days? The most important reason, in my opinion, is access. I work on a residential college campus, I love walking through the library and seeing all the undergrads studying. But those aren't our only patrons. Not all academic institutions are residential. All academic libraries have to think about commuter students who aren't on campus 24/7. Libraries of all types have to think about working professionals who aren't available during standard open hours, folks with family commitments, and rural residents who don't live near a library. COVID showed us how useful ebooks are when you can't get to the physical library. Folks want that ease of access, and we can't take it away. The ACRL, Standards for Distance Learning Library Services, says that all distance and online members of an institution of higher education are entitled to the library services, resources, and collections of that institution. I find it very interesting that ACRL used to state that folks should have access equivalent to those provided in traditional settings, but dropped that language. I believe we should strive for equivalent access, which is why I think ebook ILL is so important. We can't just purchase every ebook in existence the same way we can't just purchase every print book. And we need to be able to ILL ebooks just as we ILL print books so we can serve these patrons. Of course, there are many other advantages to ebooks, and distance and online patrons aren't the only ones who use them. Ebooks allow for full text searching, so folks can easily find the book parts of the book that are relevant to their needs. They often allow for copy and paste, which helps with note-taking. They can be accessed with a click of a button from wherever the patron is located and don't involve any extra time getting to the library, wandering the stacks, or interacting with staff at the circulation desk. Ebooks are more accessible for those with print disabilities. The EPUB format is an accessible format, and while PDFs are not always perfect when screen readers are involved, they're better than paper books. Also, fewer trees are killed in the making of ebooks, which is a plus for the environment. As librarians, we can appreciate the fact that we can offer more books without the constraint of shelf space. Ebooks also can't be stolen, and we don't have to employ students to reshelve them. In other words, ebooks fill a need. In other words, ebooks fill a need. They fill many needs, but we also have a problem because only a few of us can actually lend ebooks via interlibrary loan. And why can't we lend? Simply, we have no rights. Ebooks are never sold to the library, and without a sale, we have no rights under Section 108 of the copyright law. Instead, ebooks are licensed to us, and the license dictates what we can do. Some licenses flat out refuse to allow interlibrary loan. Some licenses allow lending of chapters, which is useful, but not enough. A few even allow lending of whole ebooks, which is fantastic, but licenses are negotiated individually by a publisher or aggregator and a library or consortium. There is no consistency. The other half of the problem is DRM, which is often used to enforce the licenses. DRM locks down what can be done with ebooks, and it's honestly a pain in the butt. Oftentimes, DRM limits how many pages of a book can be downloaded, which means that even if a license says you can ILL chapters of an ebook, if an ebook chapter is too long, you're out of luck. But licensing in DRM exists because publishers are scared. They saw what happened to the music industry after Napster, and they're terrified it's going to happen to the book industry. They don't understand how libraries and interlibrary loan function, and they're trying to protect themselves. This is something we can work on. Luckily for us, some folks already are. The first whole ebook lending project was Occam's Reader, which began as a pilot in 2014. It was developed by Texas Tech University, the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and the Greater Western Library Alliance, and cost libraries $500 to subscribe. Libraries using Occam's Reader can lend ebooks to anyone, not just other Occam's Reader subscribers. In Occam's Reader, participating librarians use the software to take pictures of each ebook to upload to the Occam's Reader viewer, which the patron then uses to read the ebook during a 2-week loan period. The Occam's Reader viewer allows the book to be viewed or read by the built-in voice reader but doesn't offer any of the additional features of an ebook experience, such as searching or copy-paste, since Occam's Reader was built to mimic the experience of a physical interlibrary loan as much as possible. More recently, Occam's Reader has built controlled digital lending capability for course reserves into its software. There are currently 35 to 40 libraries using the system at any given time, and there have been 8,000 requests on Occam's Reader since 2014. In the public library realm, Overdrive has been allowing forms of resource sharing between libraries for a while. Some libraries have licenses with Overdrive that allow them to share the books they offer via Overdrive Advantage with other libraries within the consortium. In Massachusetts, the LEA program allows patrons to borrow ebooks and e-audiobooks from any library network in the state. The pilot began in 2017 and went fully live in 2019. These outside patrons simply log into a network's Overdrive or Libby using their home library credentials, and they interact with the system as if they were a native patron. The only difference is that when they join a hold list, priority is given to local patrons. The newest whole ebook lending project is being organized by ProQuest eBook Central. Their pilot began in November 2021 with 6 publishers and 4 cohorts of libraries sharing ebooks that they have paid for, so no DDA titles. The ProQuest model allows libraries to lend whole ebooks to others within their cohorts, but doesn't allow libraries in different cohorts to lend to each other. When ebooks are requested, librarians go into the back end of eBook Central to create a tokenized URL that the patron can use for 2 weeks to view the ebook in eBook Central's platform. The patron can utilize all the features of the platform, but they can't save anything from session to session. During the first year of the ProQuest pilot, there were 900 transactions. Interestingly, 8% of the requests originated in public libraries and 10% originated in community colleges, despite the fact that only one of the cohorts included public libraries. I think this shows the importance of including all types of libraries as we're thinking about ebook lending. Academic libraries are going to have materials that are too specialized for public libraries to buy, and public libraries are going to have materials that are not scholarly enough for the academics. But our patrons want these things. As we share in print, we need to be thinking about sharing electronically. Anyway, back to the ProQuest pilot. It has been a success so far, and ProQuest is now working on adding publishers and integrating with other Clarivate products. I don't actually know what ProQuest is using to measure success, but here's what I think is the best measure of success. This quote comes from a presentation given by various folks involved in the ProQuest pilot at the Charleston conference last year. After the ProQuest folks and the librarians spoke, the publishers took the stage. This quote from Sylvia Bonadillo at Brill was brilliant. After analyzing the data from the ProQuest pilot to date, she said,
we're not losing sales of books. We are actually allowing potential scholars in the future, potential authors, and people who didn't know about Brill or about an author that we publish or a series that we publish, maybe they'll find this through a whole ILL book. So we need to participate. We can't worry about the copy police. We can't worry about maybe no DRM and having our PDF of the book about Aramaic feminist literature flying around. We just have to keep going forward and just know that our community is respectful of copyright.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. This is someone who has spoken with librarians. This is someone who understands that we and our patrons respect copyright, that we have systems in place to ensure that the ebook landscape isn't a free-for-all, and that all we want is to be able to provide folks with the information they need, as should be our right. So what are these no DRM ebooks Bonadillo speaks of? That's the other form of whole ebook ILL. DRM-free ebooks are slowly becoming normalized in the academic sphere, and some mainstream publishers such as Tor are offering them to the public, though not to libraries as of yet. And some of these DRM-free ebooks can be lent via ILL. The first DRM-free ebook lending program began in 2016 when the Viva Consortium in Virginia put out a call for contracts that included DRM-free ebook content and full ebook lending rights for interlibrary loan, and 4 publishers agreed. Since then, Viva has conducted webinars and conference sessions, put their contract language and best practices on their website, and generally let the ILL world know that, hey, this is possible. Other libraries and consortia have followed suit, negotiating DRM-free full ebook ILL rights in their own publisher contracts. These rights only extend to the books from these publishers that are offered directly from the publishers, since licenses for ebooks on aggregator platforms such as Project Muse or EBSCO ebooks are negotiated by the aggregator, not the library or consortium. DRM-free ebook requests are sent as PDFs using the same systems that libraries already use to lend other non-returnables to each other, such as Odyssey and Article Exchange. While the amount of time the ebook remains in the platform is limited, once the ebook is downloaded by the patron, it is theirs forever. Besides licensing, the biggest hurdle to this method of ebook lending cited in the literature is that some ebooks are only available for downloading chapter by chapter, and those must be stitched together into a single PDF before they can be sent to the patron. So we have all these different ways of lending full ebooks now. We can tell our patrons, yes, we can get you that ebook you want, right? Yeah, no. A patron places a request. Who do you ask to fill it? Can the book the patron wants even be filled by anyone? There are a few existing ways of finding lenders for ebooks. We can attend webinars and conferences. Congrats, you're doing that one right now. We can read the professional literature. We can keep personal lists of the libraries who are speaking publicly about lending ebooks and who they say they can lend from. We can add to these lists whenever we stumble upon someone new. We can ask the ILL listservs, who's lending? Someone asked this on ILL just the other week. Some of us can also send requests to OCLC's Ebook group, which includes 27 libraries who say they lend full ebooks. These methods are insufficient. OCLC's Ebook group seems like the best solution, but it requires folks to use OCLC, which not everyone does. Brandeis doesn't. A lot of international libraries don't. In addition, not everyone who uses OCLC lends that way. At least one library I've heard about only lends ebooks via Rapid ILL because Rapid ILL allows them to specify which ebooks allow lending, and OCLC doesn't. Also, the Ebook list includes 26 US libraries and 1 Canadian library, and I refuse to believe that there is only one lender of ebooks outside of the United States. The OCLC list is incomplete. The OCLC list also doesn't specify which publishers the member libraries can lend from. I can send a McGraw-Hill ebook request to that group all I want, or I could if I used OCLC. You can if you do. It's not getting filled because no one has that license to lend. But OCLC can't tell me that. It's knowledge I've gathered from my own research. You all learned earlier that Brill is open to whole ebook lending, but that doesn't mean everyone can lend from them. The University of Pennsylvania can, for instance. If I send Penn a request for an ebook from De Gruyter, they can fill that. If I want Brill, I need to go to a Viva library or someone else who has that license. We can all keep individual lists. We can make our own spreadsheets of which libraries can lend what based on our own experience and our own networks. The problem with this method is that while we're all one very large community of librarians, we don't all have the same networks. Each of our lists is going to be incomplete, and each of our lists is going to become out of date as more folks begin lending from more publishers. I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that I'm new to working at Brandeis. This means I'm new to working at an institution where I'm not the only one doing resource sharing, and where I'm part of a whole consortium of folks I can bounce ideas and projects off of. It means I have access to people and resources that I was shut out of when I worked at a smaller institution. But smaller institutions matter. All of our patrons matter. It's not fair to anyone for smaller institutions with smaller networks, it's only the libraries who speak out, present at conferences, publish in the literature, who are known as lenders. It's not fair to them to have to get the bulk of the requests. And it's not fair to our patrons that there may very well be books out there that are licensed for whole ebook lending at some other library that we can't get for them because we don't know they're out there. So what do we do about it? We work together. I have created a Google form in which lenders can submit their whole ebook lending abilities. I ask for a library's name, their consortium if the licenses are negotiated consortially, their OCLC and DocLine symbols if applicable, which publishers they can lend from, which platforms they can lend from, which at this point is mostly wishful thinking, and any restrictions they have in their ability to lend these materials. Libraries can keep their data up to date either by using a link emailed to them after their first submission or by submitting a second entry. The results from the Google form go into a public spreadsheet that all of us can access. This isn't a list of ebook lenders for Brandeis to use. This is a list for our entire community to be able to refer to. Who benefits? First, borrowers. If a library is on this list, we know first that they can lend full ebooks, and second, whose ebooks they can lend. That doesn't mean they can lend exactly the ebook you want, because we all get our ebooks from multiple sources and in multiple ways. Not every ebook listed in the library's catalog by a specific publisher will be available for lending, but it's a start. It's a narrowing down. It's a, this could be possible, let's try it. For lenders, if borrowers truly use the spreadsheet, you'll get fewer requests for things from publishers you don't have licenses to lend from. That means less wasted time and better fill rates. For licensed negotiators, this spreadsheet is a source of information on who's open to whole ebook ILL. As license renewals come up with these publishers and it's time to renegotiate, maybe you can work whole ebook ILL into your own contracts. This spreadsheet is also a list of people you can turn to in order to ask, how did you do it? What was it like to work with this publisher? The more knowledge we have, the more we can do. This list will, unfortunately, also be incomplete by necessity. It needs to be public so that all in the resource sharing community have access. However, I know some libraries can't share their lending practices. Some libraries are interpreting current license terms a bit more loosely than they're comfortable admitting publicly on the internet. And some libraries have secrecy clauses in their contracts. To those libraries, I say, don't submit your information. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble. However, you can use this document. Are others who are working with the same publishers you are on this list? Talk to them. Find out what language they use in their licenses. See if you can get it into your next contract. Then contribute your information only when it feels safe. We've been talking about ebooks as a community for a long time now, but it still feels like we're in the early days. What comes next? First, we need more libraries on the crowdsourced list. Currently, we only have 9 all in the US. And while 9 is a start, I know there are more libraries out there lending ebooks. If this list is going to be useful for the community, we need to contribute to it as a community. Second, this list eventually needs to be hosted by someone else. I'm one librarian at one university based in the United States using Google Forms. There is nothing official about this list. It's hosted on my university servers under my credentials, and if I should ever, God forbid, have to leave Brandeis, I don't know what happens to it. Eventually, we need a vendor-neutral organization to take up the mantle. We also need vendors to adopt the latest ISO 18626 standard, which was most recently revised in 2021. This standard includes functionality that allows for the borrowing and lending of ebooks in multiple formats, DRM or DRM-free, but not a single ILL system has implemented it yet. Folks, it's been 2 years. What are we waiting for? Why are our systems still running on outdated standards? As a library community, our next step with ebook lending is to make our lendability information available to borrowers on the title level. Washington State University has had their license terms available in their OPAC since at least 2021, and Brandeis is working on doing the same thing. Putting this information in our OPACs takes the last of the extra guesswork out of requesting whole ebooks and really puts whole ebook requesting on par with requesting physical books. Finally, we need a public repository of license language. Vista Stars has a model in a library loan license clause, but that tells us nothing about what people are actually having success using. If we can make license language more transparent so we know what works, that's one less hurdle for folks when they have to negotiate with publishers. That's what I have for you today. I believe we have time for some Q&A.
Thanks, Deb. That was a lot of really good information. I'm hoping everyone's hearing me. We did post the link to the form and the spreadsheet in both chat and in the Q&A. If people have questions, please put them in the Q&A function in Whova, because we may not see your questions that have been posted in the chat. I know there is one question, and I'll read that one now. Is Gobi considered an aggregator? We purchase some DRM free books from that platform.
You know, I don't know. It's been a very long time since I've worked in acquisitions and a very long time since I've worked with Gobi. I would say check your licenses. If someone at your library is the one doing the negotiation, great. If Gobi's the one doing the negotiating for you, you're out of luck. You have to work with them.
We also have a question about, I just don't understand how some libraries can lend ebooks.
It all has to do with the language and the licenses. Springer was the first one to allow it in their contract language to say, yes, we'll let you do this. Honestly, I am still amazed that publishers are allowing non-DRM ILLing of their books, but hey, I welcome it. It's the easiest way to do it. But there are multiple different methods. I think the ProQuest pilot is great for those publishers that are more hesitant. I think a 2-week loan period is a little bit too short, particularly for those academics where the students are used to having semester-long loans. But I'm anxious to see where that pilot goes and hoping that it opens up to more libraries and hopefully to a model where you don't have to be in a cohort and stuck to lending to those folks. But I think this is really a place where we have to go as libraries, especially as we have more and more ebooks, because no one can own everything. And we have to be able to get our patrons what they need, either to do their research, whether they are in academic libraries or whether they're in publics. All of us, or government libraries, any sort of library you're talking about. I apologize for being public and academic centric here.
Our next question, why do you think libraries haven't adopted the new ISO standard?
It's not up to libraries to adopt the new ISO standard, it's up to vendors. And if I were to speculate, and this is based on absolutely nothing other than my own experience as someone who works with systems, is that the systems folks are putting so much effort into developing new features in their systems. They're not looking at what their systems are built on. Perhaps they didn't hear that the new ISO standard came out. I don't know. I'm not a vendor. I've never worked at a vendor. But Brandeis cannot adopt the new ISO standard on their own. We need Clarivate to do it. Someone who uses Iliad needs Atlas to do it. It's not something that the libraries can do. It's something that vendors have to do.
So the next question with the most votes has several parts. When receiving full ebook loans, do they usually arrive in a single PDF like an article? Would we ever need to access it through a specific platform? And the last part is, are there concerns about file size?
So I will preface this with the fact that Brandeis is not yet lending ebooks. We are at the stage where we are still corralling our licenses and figuring out what exactly is in them. We have a large number of very old licenses that are still in paper. So that's a project that our acquisitions and e-resources teams are working on right now. But as a borrower, what I have seen is that folks are taking multi-chapter ebooks and stitching them together and sending one PDF file. I have received a couple of files from New York Public Library where they had to send them via an alternative file sharing program because they were too big for Article Exchange. But most of the files I'm receiving are through Article Exchange, just like anything else. And I have read that folks are compressing files to make them small enough for Article Exchange. And those are for the DRM-free. Now, Brandeis is not in any of those pilots for the DRM versions of whole ebook licenses, but for those, the patron receives a URL, and then the patron goes to a platform to view that ebook. And they have a 2-week term in which they can do it, and then poof, that ebook goes away.
So our most popular question isn't a question. I'm going to read it because I agree with it 100%. Not a question, but wanted to comment that this session is so relevant and informative. Thank you. Could have left that for the last, but I just had to get that in there. We have a few more questions.
Thank you.
Are more public libraries participating? It seems most ebooks that are available to lend are all academic, which is not what our patrons are looking for.
I think the biggest problem with the publics is the fact that the most popular platforms that the public libraries use are Overdrive, Hoopla, and I can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head. Libby is an Overdrive platform. Libby is the app version of the Overdrive website. These are aggregators, and the aggregators don't seem to be interested in whole ebook lending because they are negotiating with a very large number of publishers and then passing those rights along to libraries. And whole ebook lending is just not something they are focused on. And when you've got the publics in particular, those publishers are skittish. They're really worried about file sharing. And with the exception of Overdrive's LEA program, I haven't seen evidence that the aggregators or the publishers are open to finding ways of ebook ILL. Now, I will say that there are some public patrons who are interested in academic books. We see that with that 8% of requests in ProQuest pilot, which I think is really important. Do I think that it would be amazing for those public aggregators to look into whole ebook lending? Absolutely. Do I know where the leverage is? Absolutely not.
So one of our next questions is, what organization do you think would be best suited to maintain this list? And someone in chat had posted a suggestion, so I've added that as, oh, I thought I did. Sorry, I lost it. The questions are jumping around on me. I added that as a reply, and I'm going to try and read the URL, ill.circle.so/home, just so that we're aware of that when we have the recording up. And then I'll let you get back to the question.
I have absolutely no idea. As I said, I am new to being in a larger institution, which means my knowledge of organizations beyond what we used at the smaller institution are very limited. I simply don't know the larger ILL landscape well enough to know who's out there. But I think the fact that it can't be one of the vendors who has a system, it can't be Clarivate, it can't be OCLC, it can't be Atlas, it can't be anyone that locks you down to the people who use their system, because it has to be open to anyone who uses it, who is going to do ILL. Who that is, I have absolutely no idea. It's an open call.
Yeah, the person who wrote in chat suggested that it's a really good topic for further discussion. So it would be a great idea to make either a meetup or a chat session about this on the main screen. Our next question is, technically, how does ebook lending work? Do you have an intermediate platform with authentication given to the patron or the ILL requester?
That depends on the type of ebook lending. Occam's Reader and ProQuest both have an intermediate platform that the patron uses, DRM free. They just get the PDF via article exchange the same way they would get an article. Overdrive, you're just on the platform as if you were any other patron.
Okay, next we have not really a question, but just wanted to put this out here. There's a lot of power in negotiating license terms as a consortium. Any ebooks we can share have been negotiated by one of our consortiums on behalf of all members. And I think that's a really good point. I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that, Dev.
That is definitely a thing. I think it's very telling that Viva was the first place to do whole ebook lending. I know that the Boston Library Consortium is looking into consortial licenses, which is probably the way Brandeis will first be able to do any whole ebook licenses, whole ebook lending, assuming that the BLC is successful, which it may or may not be. I have no part in that, and it's something that's only now beginning. I hope they're okay with me announcing it in public.
We won't tell. Next we have, I'm wondering if there are any vendors out there working on better mechanisms to share ebooks or even offer controlled digital lending of materials. Seems like technology is also a big limitation in addition to the publisher terms.
Controlled digital lending, I know that the Occam's Readers folks have done that for reserves. Right now it is not what I've been looking into. For controlled digital lending, you want to look at the lightning talk and the session after this. As for the vendors, there's a quote. I think I've done so much reading and I can't tell you exactly who it is right now who spoke about talking to Project Muse. It was either the folks at University of Connecticut or it was the folks at Tufts, and one of them spoke to Project Muse, and it just was not something that they were interested in pursuing at the moment in their licenses. And we sort of have to respect the fact that the aggregators are trying to get publisher content. Their goal is to get the content to be able to give the libraries. Our goal is to be able to get the content for our patrons in the best way possible. So they have a little bit less incentive to get the whole ebook rights than we do. And I don't exactly know how to push them in the right direction. That is a bit above my pay grade at the moment.
If anyone else has questions, please add them to the Q&A now. We've got one more. Is, I don't know, Ebook or Ebook not compatible with Iliad? it does not show up in the profile groups. And then I think if you don't have the answer to that, Dev, someone has posted an answer in the Q&A.
I will need you to read out that answer because it has been years since I've worked in Iliad.
Okay, someone says you have to add it through customization manager before it will show up. So that's our community response. Thank you so much. So I'm not seeing any other questions. I will say that there was, oh, maybe there is one. Oh, here we go. In my library, ILL doesn't have a sitting seat on our collections committee, but clearly we could offer some knowledge. Any advice on trying to curate relationships with e-resource librarian? I'm going to upvote that question right now.
I am very lucky in that as I was preparing this presentation, I was able to just knock on the door of the person who is the head of the metadata department and just say, hey, can you tell me what's going on here? And she was very happy to talk to me about it. I think it's all about getting to know the other folks in your library. Your department is just one small part of a very large functioning library. And if you can get to know folks and be like, hey, I have this knowledge. I think we can work together on this. It seems like it would behoove them to talk to you and to work together. Unfortunately, since Brandeis is a nice open place, I do not have advice on getting people to work together.
I think that brings us to the end of all the questions. You can feel free to continue adding questions and Dev can come back in and answer them as they come in. I also want to read a comment in chat. This has been the best presentation for me and what we were talking about in our department, very timely. I think a lot of people are agreeing with that. And a couple of people have said that they would appreciate some more discussion on the topic. And I want to remind all of the attendees that you have the ability to go into the community section on Whova and create discussions and meetups as well. And then there's something I'm supposed to read. Let's see. NWILL thanks everyone for attending this session on ebook lenders keeping track together. Please fill out the post-session survey. The link can be found on the conference page, and we'll put it in the Whova chat one more time. Additionally, if you've enjoyed this session and want to continue the conversation, you can continue to use the chat within this session or move over to the community section of Whova where you can use the chat boards or create a virtual meetup. So I'm going to grab that survey link and get it into the chat one more time. And then thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.